Welcome, everybody, to the first of the Galactic Goose podcast series, Conversations that Bridge Galaxies and Hearts, Stories of Consciousness, Healing, and the Journey of Being Human, with myself, Jenny, and my sister, Atava.
Welcome, everybody. We're glad that you're here, that you taking the time to watch this and get into the Galactic Goose portal vibe. Um, we did one other video explaining kind of the inspiration and the origin of the Galactic Goose Sisters podcast, and we'll put the link below so you can just learn about how we got to this place. But yeah, we are sisters of blood, like we incubated in the same or gestated in the same womb, have the same fathers with the same ancestors. So we're excited to begin this conversation. We decided to start by interviewing ourselves before we start interviewing other people.
And we crafted particular questions to ask one another so that you can get to know us and our stories. So today we're going to begin with some of those questions. And our first question, which I'll ask you, Atava, is what does healing mean to you today? And how has that definition changed over time?
That is a great question, and it's so deep and so multi layered and really relevant to where I've been lately. I've definitely been in a healing journey, or some might say a dark night of the soul, with really my physical health, and really having to face and confront a lot of the kind of deep internalized beliefs and messages I have about healing, and how, I guess, which are really a product of colonization, of westernization, of separation from earth and spirit and ancestors, and all those ways they literally impact our well-being. So one thing that I learned recently in the Mashika cosmogony, there's an energy. They're called the Teot. They're not divinities, they're not gods, but just an energy of the universe that kind of presides over healing. And this being is called Patekatl. And what I learned is this being is, or the energy of Patekatl is really just about helping bring balance. So I've really been embracing that heal, or instead of trying to heal everything, because I feel like I'm someone who, like, for whatever, from a young age, not just only was trying to heal myself, but I was trying to heal like the ancestors and the community and the world. And that's like a lot for one human to take on. But I really am embracing this concept of balance, like in any moment, what is needed to bring about balance to the situation, and having a very broad perspective, because I feel like healing as a goal can also be very ableist. Like, some people live with chronic illness or disability, or some people are in the death process, but you can still find a way to be in balance, or in Jitsu, right? Harmony in any moment, or even just find ways to tend to oneself while you're going through things. So I'll just say, because this could be a long question, but even though, as someone who's been on like an herbal path, a curandera path for like decades, and have a lot of belief in the plants, a lot of belief in these traditional medicine practices, and I've been teaching it for decades, kind of when I was been faced with my own healing crisis, I found that I was more kind of wanting answers from like a doctor. I wanted a diagnosis. I wanted a medication that would make me feel better. Um, I wanted, them to say what's going on with me. And in my journey, I tried many, many times, and no like outside person could really tell me what was going on. Not just physicians, but acupuncturists or naturopaths or whatever. Like, and And it was kind of like I kept knocking on the door kept slamming. I tried again, another person, and person, and then literally it kind of the shift I realized, oh, I don't even trust and believe on the deepest level in my own medicine. And so I've been really kind of unpacking and composting those beliefs and trusting that I have all I need to find balance or harmony or, rebalance after being disharmonious with the plants, with even just breath. Like I've been finding my way to breath work as actually a very transformative practice. And also realizing how much if my mind is thinking I need something outside of myself to be well, I'm never going to be well with my own resources. So, really having to do a lot of like unlearning. And, but the other thing I want to say about healing is we're in such an out of balance world. And I feel like how can I just want to invite us all to think about how our wellness is connected to everyone else, and that it's become so individualistic. Write this about in my book, like it's about like capitalism, like we go on retreats and pay all this money to be well, but it's really such a deeper thing. So I think the last thing I'll say, um, it's just about relationship, like being in relationship with ourselves, our organs, our tissues, our ancestors, spirits, the earth, and just sourcing that as strength, as medicine. And for me, it's also a lot about just letting go and accepting the journey. And sometimes that just means feeling like crap. and that and that's not a failure. It's not, and I love how there's just more conversation in the collective about mental health issues, about physical health issues, and that it's not a failure. And so I think I've had a lot of shame, like, oh, I'm this like wellness educator and I've had all these issues and illnesses, but that's just part of the journey, and it's not easy. Um, but one thing, and I learned this from our friend, Sister Miriam. So now my question when I'm not feeling well, it's like, how can I work with this experience to grow more love in my heart? Like literally, like what else can we do? I mean, I could sit there and suffer and feel like a victim and not want to be in the earth plane, but it's like, well, so just trying to compost everything and find a little bit of nourishment, even if it's on a spiritual level, preparing me to be a good ancestor, a good elder. So I will ask you the same question, Goose. What does healing mean to you today, and how has that definition changed over time?
Well, that is certainly such a great question and could be like months of a conversation. And you brought up so many good points in your answer. And one of the things that you said that really sparked my thought processes about how, healing is not just an individualistic occurrence. Really, we are all connected. And so healing is so much about relationships and balance and harmony, and whether that's relationships within our own body, mind, heart, relationships in our families, communities, relationships uh, with nature, with all of our relations. And of course, this is something that throughout time and space here on planet Earth, most humans understood as when we go back in history, and we become much more fragmented, and especially in our Western world with the nuclear family and um, such individualism, especially in the West. So I think healing for me really is about broadening my understanding of who I am, where I am, how everything in my life is connected to all the rest of creation. And I think I would say, I mean, for me, I first really began on a quote unquote journey of healing in my late teens, perhaps, yeah, late teens, early 20s. I was really struggling a lot with my own relationship and journey with food and, what we could call eating disorders, and mental emotional stress. And that was the way it showed up for me. And um, I talk about this a lot when I'm teaching, and it's like, so Paracelsus, who was a Swiss physician, I think from the 1600s, said, all disharmony is due to the inappropriate intermingling of the elements. So if we think about creation and the earth and just all the elements and the balance, and right now we see fires and floods, and there's clearly in our external environment a lot of imbalance, but we also contain all those elements within ourselves. So for me, going back to that journey of some, anxiety, depression, big challenges with my relationship to food. That's what we would say an earth element imbalance. And earth is about the sense of stability, being nourished, nurtured, loved, safe, comfortable in my own skin. And one of the things that came into my life at that time was after my first year of college, I went and interned on an organic farm in Eugene, Oregon, outside of Eugene. And through the course of basically working in the dirt for, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day for that summer, I started to feel so much more balanced in my own mental, emotional state, my body. I had gone that whole first year of college without getting my periods. My hormones were really out of whack. And then I started to get my period again, along with I was taking some um, herbal tinctures. So between the being in the, working with the earth and then receiving that herbal medicine, which are both forms of, that earth element. So that began the journey of healing for me. And in terms of my own awareness of like, wow, there's, much more potential and possibility. And I don't know if I ever thought it was like a journey of like I'm going to arrive somewhere and then I'll be there and all will be well. But I think certainly we're taught that of like, we're again in Western medicine, it's like we're taught like, oh, there's something wrong. I'm going to go to the doctor. They're going to give me a pill to fix it. I feel pretty blessed because I did discover the path of Jin Shin Jitsu when I was, 21, I believe, when I first received treatments, and then 23, I began studying. And Jin Shin Jitsu, one of the translations, is literally the creator's art through the person of compassionate knowing, or the art of benevolence, the art of getting to know and help myself. And one of the basic teachings in Jin Shin Jitsu is that, well, number one, that we, or, whoever's the practitioner, I am not the doer. I'm simply a jumper cable for this perfect, infinite, vital life force energy to come through and remind my system, or if I'm working with another person, remind their system of what they already know to essentially sort of jumpstart the vital life force energy, that body's natural intelligence and wisdom, which is always harmonizing. Um, and that there really is nothing to fix. It's not about fixing, it's really about being present with. And Mary Burmeister, the grandmother of Jinshin Jitsu, she used to say, we are simply being witness to the harmonizing. And so that's for me, as I've, studied and practiced now for going on nearly 30 years, and been with so many people through all sorts of illnesses, life transitions, birth, death. I have come to the awareness that, how I view healing really is about this capacity to witness and be witnessed in all of our experiences, and to be witnessed with compassion, with love, without expectation or judgment. And it's in that, it's just like in quantum physics, when there's a witness, things change. And what I've experienced is that when we are witnessed in whatever places, whether it's, deep, deep suffering, perhaps a stuck belief system, a belief system that's been passed through the generations, um, things that, a belief system that came from perhaps our experiences in childhood, when there's somebody witnessing with that type of compassion, love, deep listening, things shift. And with Jin Jin Jitsu, of course, we also use our hands, or we often do. We can also practice remotely. I always say it's a practice that uses touch, breath, and awareness, or any combination thereof, to support the harmonizing. So I'd say healing, my definition right now would be stepping into greater wholeness, really embracing all of the places within. And sometimes, like for me right now, I'm in the perimenopausal state of life, and it's been the most challenging for me in terms of mental, emotional balance and health. I was blessed throughout my life of, just getting my periods. I never had a lot of emotional turbulence with my cycles, and pregnancy. I was very, very happy. And this, I've felt it more acutely. Um, and so it's been, I guess, good fodder for practice with myself of really being gentle with myself through all the ups and downs, and inviting in, like you said, inviting in that prayer of how can I open my heart more fully? How can this be, bring more love? How can I bring more acceptance? So I'd also, I guess, include that. I feel like healing is a lot about learning to accept and embrace where I'm at in this moment. And also, the other thing I would say that Mary Burmeister said a lot and or often in her teaching was, where's your focus? She would ask again and again, where's your focus? And say, energy is going to go where your focus is. And often, whether it's a physical illness or project or mental emotional turmoil, I think it's very human to just put our focus there and be like, what can I do to change this? And this is something I'm starting to integrate and really understand more deeply in the past couple years of like shifting the focus really means shifting the focus, bringing my mental state somewhere else. Um, and I feel like that can be a fine, and it's a balance, because it's not at all about, neglecting or repressing or denying the hard stuff, which I feel like in a lot of spiritual communities, it's kind of like, oh, just focus on the love or whatever. And that can be harmful, especially when there's been, lineages of oppression and repression and all of that. And so, well, and I think that's part of the impetus for the Galactic Goose. So some of the shifting the focuses, I know a part of our intention is to bring in the playfulness, and there is so much heaviness here on planet Earth, personally and collectively. So how can we invite the playfulness, the joy, the innocence of our own hearts into the journey? And for me, I'd say that all of that is healing. So I think I'll pause there again. I feel like this question we could, probably continue to ask one another for the next year, and we would.
And I feel like you're, can I say more now that you
Mhm.
said?
Yeah.
And for the playfulness, I'm going to go squawk to the listeners. That's what the good Galactic Goose Sisters do. So, we're always taking a breath, but you might want to do a squawk or cackle or a moo or whatever your a meow animal sound is. Yeah, because I realized I didn't really talk about like how it's changed over time. I liked how you shared the story of your young adult teenage self and finding your way to healing. Um, I think I first became aware of needing healing probably sometime in college, and our family was going through a lot. We were the daughters of a father who had a gambling addiction, and I think things really crashed. And you were still at home. I was in college. And, you know, I don't get in all the details, but I know you and mom left, and it was like there's a family intervention. And there I was in college, like with zero, zero mental health resources or support. This was in the 80s. So, hopefully it's better in terms of just even letting students know like there's someone there to talk to, or there's counseling available or whatever. And I just remember I went to I don't even know what class it was, but I think the teacher was talking about addiction and recovery. And I just remember like sobbing and having to leave the space because again, there was nobody talking about in my life at that time, and it certainly wasn't trending in the collective about addiction or, children of alcoholics or children of whatever, people who are addicts. And I think in that whole time, the only quote healing intervention by an adult or someone older than me was our Uncle Norb, who like gave me a phone call. He said he was praying to Jesus for me, and it didn't feel super. I didn't feel nourished by it, but it was a gesture of kindness. It was the only one. Um, and I think it was in the following years, like I took a year off of college and just was kind of realizing, wow, like just that beginning of self-awareness of like myself as a being, myself as also struggling with eating disorder in high school and early college. And I'm remembering it's interesting also what happened in college. I was at a workshop with Joanna Macy. And this was in the very early Joanna Macy days. Like she had written Despair and Empowerment in the Nuclear Age. And she had us do this workshop where we partnered up and we would imagine, I think it was intense, like what if the world ended because of a nuclear holocaust? And like to really tap into our hearts of the collective and the terror, and that workshop just totally changed my life because again it was like this very wise adults. I mean, again, this was whatever 30 years ago, 35 years ago, but Joanna now is an ancestor and she went on to do great work. But she was creating again a space, a vibration, an invitation to like think about ourselves in this much bigger context. Yeah, and then I think also similar to you, I found myself on a like studying healing work at a young age. It really was getting into a car accident, which sent me to the chiropractor. And then I would start getting massage. It was like, oh, I could do this. um, so I started studying acupressure and Tui Na, traditional Chinese medicine, body work styles, and then on to herbalism. So I just also feel lucky that my young self again had just an introduction to much bigger philosophies and systems of healing or wellness than our Western medical paradigm. And when I look at back my life now, I feel like in my early 20s and well into my 30s, I was just doing a lot of emotional self-healing, like healing my, from childhood, from family, events and trauma. Um, and then it kind of went into the decades of relationship healing, like all the literally shit that comes up when we're in intimate relationships. And I feel like that was definitely a phase of seeing myself, seeing shadows, seeing that no matter how we think we're like mastered our own inner world, like when we bring someone else into the picture, especially with like an intimate relationship, like how like literally so much comes to the surface, and we can get I'll say I got very destabilized and um ungrounded and kind of crazy really. um and then I would say starting about my 40s, and I feel like my focus shifted to like literally like healing, working with my physical health, my physical body. But of course, they're all connected, right? It's not like the emotional and the relational and the physical are like separate, but it just seems like the focus of, now, again, since the past 10 years, I'm in my 50s, it's been a lot of the physical body. But as I sit with, everything that's going on in my physical body, you're right, we could un what is the word, like follow the thread to like, oh, this has to do with this relationship with this person, or this has to do with this event, this trauma, this susto, this has to do with stuff that we just came in with ancestrally, like, we have the same ancestors. So I feel like a lot on my physical body and emotional body is from our maternal grandmother, because she had a really, really rough life and a lot of depression, a lot of trauma. um, and I always thought, oh, that like anxiety, depression gene kind of didn't manifest. And then it's like, oh, there it is. um, so, and I think the last thing I want to say, in the early days, especially as an early practitioner or younger practitioner, I thought, oh, if people just like, if you just eat well, you take your herbs, you maybe do your Jin Shin Jitsu, like you can be well. And I realized that's also very limiting way. Like sometimes it's really, really difficult. And again, that for me, that's also just part of the mystery. And I love how you said just being compassionate and being, whether we're working as a healer or being this way with ourselves or with our loved ones, just holding the space for all of it without trying to have a desired outcome. And because I think that is somehow related to capitalism and Western medicine. Like, oh, just do A and B, and then you'll get to C, and you'll feel better. And sometimes, I mean, a lot of times it's a lot messier and chaotic than that. And again, I feel like it perpetuates a lot of ableism and just even self blame. Like we can't blame any of us or anyone for not being well again in this very, very out of balance world. So I just wanted to add that. And honestly, right now, especially with what's happened to me in this last month, like I feel like I was telling my wife, like I feel Liz, like I feel like everything I thought about everything, especially healing, if it was all on a chalkboard, it got erased. Like I'm really like I actually all I know is that I internalized a lot of messages that were from, like capitalism or like, all of the forces that like destroyed indigenous ways of knowing all around the world, like patriarchy. I mean, all of that. I was like, what is really my truth? um, and I do believe, there are some truths. Like I know prayer is a powerful energy. I know prayer, receiving prayers and sending prayers. Like I know I've seen that. Like I've seen that work. We've seen Jin Jitsu, healing hands, bring a shift, bring a release. So I'm just trying to like, okay, what do I know to be true? And just open to like receiving, yeah, the wisdom teachers teachings from the cosmos right now as a galactic goose trying to understand it all while I'm in my human body. You want to add anything? This might be our whole question.
Yeah, I think I will actually bounce off of you on this one. We'll just stay with this. Well, a couple of things I'm remembering. Again, Sister Miriam, who's a nun, I've been very inspired by recently and shared with Atava. And uh, she said something um, like healing is an ongoing journey of entering into deeper communion with the holy, with the sacred. And that really resonates for me. It's that ongoing journey. And I also think of my very first Jin Shin Jitsu teacher, Muriel Carlton, who was standing up there in front of the class, and I was 23, and I was just blown away. And she said, we come into this life and then we grow up and we're conditioned with all these belief systems. We human beings, we find ourselves in these boxes called belief systems. And Jin Shin Jitsu is a journey of undoing, of unwinding those belief systems within our of course, with our mind and heart, and then within our own physiology. So both of these resonate as true, and I would say my experience um, throughout this journey is a lot of time that means transforming those things that are hard. I mean, like, so our grandma died when my mom was pregnant with me. And I always felt a connection to her. It wasn't so conscious until a certain point in I think really in my early 30s when I became very aware, like, oh, this is that her energy I've been carrying. And then when I was in labor with my son Malcolm, I felt our grandmother really quite present, and there it was her strength and also her struggles, and that was part of what I went through during that labor. And part of giving birth to my son, I had him at home. It was a beautiful experience and also challenging at times. And part of what the challenging part was the pushing. He had been OP, so he was sunny side up and, turned during the process of pushing. But I pushed for over 3 hours, and I remember just wanting to give up. I mean, I literally was like, I don't care, take me to the hospital. And the midwives were like, you're still gonna have to push him out, And at last, what really helped me was I just sat down. Actually, Malcolm's father said a prayer to our ancestors, and I felt Mary Burmeister with me, like reminding me to just drop my shoulders and to trust my body. And I literally connected in with this place, this strength inside myself, and pushed him out. And it was this act of shifting from the self-doubt and fear and not trusting, which I felt was very present with our grandmother. A lot of deep, deep self-doubt, amongst other things. And giving birth to my son gave me the opportunity to trust myself deeply, to trust my body's power and wisdom and capacity. And it was an initiation. So, and then I got this beautiful gift of Malcolm. So a lot of times for me, that is my experience of healing, is that we're transforming these things. We're transforming those energies of the generation. And I there's definitely been times where I'm like, gosh, like this again, where I'm doing going through another layer of this old grief or whatever. And so it does require patience a lot of the time, patience, acceptance, humility. And I think you said it's like never to blame ourselves. This has me think of Dying to Be Me, the book, Anita Morjani, and she so beautifully expresses that, like she had this whole powerful near-death experience and remarkable, profound healing from, yeah, stage 4 cancer. And she came through it with such compassion. And she really, one of my biggest takeaways from her experiencing and from the state of awareness she contacted was like, it's all perfectly divinely orchestrated. And the most important thing is that love that we have, not only for others, but for ourselves. And we all have a different journey. I know my teacher, Mary Burmeister, used to say understanding is the hardest faculty to come by. So I remind myself that a lot, like, okay, I may not mentally understand what's going on, or what the lesson is in this right now, but it's okay. I know I'm on the path. So, and then one other piece, that you said something that sparked it. I think, healing has to do with a lot to do with whatever the context is that we find ourselves within. So again, in going back to more indigenous cultures and roots, there were there was a broader understanding of harmony within the system of the culture, the families, and within the relationships with our environment, with the earth. And when we move outside of that, so Western, modern civilization, um, like I don't, there's a lot of havoc that is wreaked. It's just it's part of the journey is finding ways in our modern lifestyle to recreate safe and healing containers for ourselves, whether that's on a podcast or in a church group or, walking in nature. However, we find that we need those containers. And we're like plants, we need certain elements. And it's not bad to have needs. It's human nature. We have needs and we need one another. So I think I'll leave it at that for now.
For the
This
connection.
definitely is such a such a great question.
Question, yeah, we probably should wrap up. Um, yeah. So what just came to me while you were talking is we invite our wonderful viewers, if you want to put in the comments, like really anything about your journey of understanding healing, the answering the question, what does it mean to you today? I believe a lot in just the power of the collective, even just finding language to talk about these things. Again, we're speaking. Many of us are not speaking ancestral tongues or are in our indigenous of the world lineages tongues, and so even English is a little limited to even how we describe anything, or Spanish or whatever. Our um, my little bit of learning some indigenous languages, like now what? It's just like there's so much just in the way things are described that again it reflects the cosmology. But that's a whole nother conversation. So add to the chat anything you want to add. Yeah, so thank you for our first conversation. We thought we'd get through 4 questions, and obviously one is enough, and this could be an on and on conversation about healing. And I'm just grateful for my sister Jenny Goose for being, creating this, and for you all for just being interested in this conversation and this reflection and this inquiry. Um, and we're excited for the future conversations. We're going to invite a lot of our friends as special guests and just continue these conversations. I mean, this question alone could be what we ask everybody. So you can subscribe to the Galactic Goose YouTube channel. We also have a Patreon that we're starting just to bring in some funding for us to do this work. And more will be coming soon. So thank you for showing up. Anything you want to add, Goose, before we end?
Squawk.
Squawk. Yeah, so the galactic geese are flying off. Maybe we'll show up in your, or they'll show up in your dreams. They'll, what was it, playfully honking through the cosmos? That was we googled galactic goose, and I don't know, that's what Google said, I don't know. So the geese are playfully honking through the cosmos inquiring about the mysteries of the universe. So bye until next time.